experts in the business. Flowers, trees, fruit and veg, letter by letter, they're all coming up a treat. Everything we're looking at today begins with the letter
F. So get ready for one of the most ancient plants on Earth. Carol Klein looks at the fantastic world of ferns.
You really don't need anything else. You could make a garden out of ferns.
A 12-year-old with a flair for flower arranging.
Tree ivy is really good because it wraps around the pots or around the flowers, which can look really effective and really quite pretty.
Why colour choice is crucial when it comes to painting fences.
The colour I'm using here is called Old English Green. It's a soft, dusky green, and the reason I'm using it is because I want to widen the garden.
And Matt Baker is out foraging for food.
That's quite,
It's minimal at this stage. You're just
it is, yeah. I mean, it's a starter.
That's all to come. But we begin with a flower that's as easy to plant as it is to maintain. And even though it tends to prefer warmer climates, there'll be plenty of you who've got at least one growing in your gardens. We're looking at F for fuchsias.
And we're meeting the De Beer family as they prepare for the Gardener's World live show.
This nursery's been here since my great-grandparents owned it in 1906, and then that followed on with my parents having a farm shop here, where my father specialised in the plant side of things and my mother did fruit and vegetables. I've got early memories of helping out in the tunnels, helping make hanging baskets, so I've picked up a general knowledge of plants from my father. And when we saw it for sale, it just seemed meant to be.
I come from an engineering background. I am interested in plants, and it's amazing all the different varieties that are out there. My favourites at the moment are one called Blackie and the Devonshire Dumpling. It's got a very big flower.
And I like the Bow Bells. It's a basket variety and it's massive flowers. It's very nice. They're so popular because they're so versatile. They weather well. Fuchsias bounce back, flowers come back, and that's why I think they're so popular. But perhaps for a trendy garden that's in vogue at the moment, they don't feature so much.
People are very passionate about the fuchsias. It really surprised both Rachel and myself.
It's like a bug, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, they're fanatical, obsessive about them. One chap came and he took 20 standards and he was all excited. He was really, it's like he was on a high. This is the time of the year and they come out, and they are real fanatics. Luckily, we've got an expert on site, Mike, and he's obviously guiding us on, the plant growth.
This is my 28th season of doing shows, so I've been doing it quite a while. But there's 4 different varieties. Yeah, there's over 12,000 different varieties. But you've got your half-hardy uprights, you've got your basket varieties, and then you have your hardy varieties, which are going to be planted out and left, and you have the trifella varieties, which are things like Thalia and Corral, which have long orange flowers. Those are very tender. So if you haven't got a heated greenhouse, bring them into the house over winter. They look very nice. They're also one of the few varieties which will take full sun out in the summer without scorching too much. Once they're in the flower, they'll flower right through until the frost.
Going to the shows and seeing the display and the colour is very rewarding. This year we've got a gold at Harrogate, a silver gilt at Malvern Spring, and last week we were in Devon where we got another gold award, and hopefully we're going to achieve a gold award at the BBC Gardeners World Live.
Well, Tim, what did you get?
We got a silver gilt that we're chuffed to bits with.
Oh, no wonder your stand looks absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
But there's 12,000 varieties of fuchsias?
That's correct, yes.
Over 70 here, there must be one that's just made for me.
There certainly is. Knowing that you live in Devon, we do have a Devonshire dumpling. That is especially for you, Carol.
Thank you very much. What are you trying to say? Round and pink?
No, a very nice blossom like you, Carol.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
well
very much.
done.
Thank you.
Next, Let's meet Ray Hears, a trucker from Hertfordshire with a passion for fuchsias and his own way of planting them.
I drive an 8-wheeler tipper truck, delivering tarmac, stone, things to ready-mix plants and things. Do a lot of muck away, and at the end of the day, you know you've done it. It's quite a stressful job, especially working around the London areas and places like that. There's a lot of waiting, a lot of traffic queues and that, and at the end of the day, I'm pretty stressed up and ready to come home. Just can't wait to get home to the garden. I got interested in gardening through my parents. My father was an extremely good gardener, and he had most of this garden down to vegetables. My mother had the front, which was flowers and fuchsias, roses. They looked after the garden very, very well, and it was always nice to come home to. And fuchsias, my mother used to call them her little ballerinas. I think ballet dancers look gorgeous with their little skirts and things, and oh, I love them. They're so different, each one's different, acts differently, shows differently. They're a wonderful plant, really. I think more people should grow them. I've got 184 varieties at the moment. Only about 96 are actually on show in the garden, the rest are parent plants. I always buy fuchsias, I just buy one of each type from a nursery. I'm not anti-garden centre, I think they've got their places, but I do wish people would go to the nurseries, the men who actually breed fuchsias. And they've always got time to talk to you and tell you about the plant, especially if it's them who's bred it. Fuchsias are so easy to grow, so undemanding. You really don't need posh greenhouses with automatic venting and things like that. Personally, I use bits of wood, 2 layers of bubble polythene. I call it double bubble, and that's all I've got. And I grow 800 a year in those greenhouses of mine. I play classical music for the plants. In winter, the fuchsias love it. You can peep in and see them swinging about to a nice piece of Baroque. Their favourites are Handel and Vivaldi. They love it. Right, 1 lorry tyre, or 2 or 3 or 4, however high you want to go, to make raised beds. And Mr. Bob Flowerdew, I thought of this long before you. I'd like to see you try and turn one of these inside out. But the idea actually is down on its side like that, in place. This rim here, cut it out totally. Favourite to use a jigsaw, leaving the bottom as a water reservoir. A little bit of ballast in the bottom for drainage. Then fill it up with compost, old topsoil, whatever. Then you're ready to plant. So this one's 2 tyres high. Filled with compost to make it look more attractive. Put wood round, all round the outside of it. Inside, 5 busy lizzies and 3 trifilias at the back. Looks a treat. We've now got 148 containers around the garden of different types, baskets, tyres, barrels, tin pots, all sorts. We'll use anything practically to put a fuchsia in. End of the day, it's the fuchsia you see, not what it's in. My wife Christine, she does all the manly jobs about the garden, the lifting, the cleaning up and things that I'm disappearing in the greenhouse and can't get to. She's out here in the middle of winter, getting it all ready for the next year. I feel very guilty about it, but she loves it anyway. She's well trained. I take fuchsia cuttings about 1 to 1.5 inches long, and I do them in August. I don't listen to the fuchsia experts. They say take them 1/2 inch long, but I get a little bit fed up with listening to them going on about that, so I do it my way because it works for me. I'm actually using a 3-inch pot to do these. You can get 5 in, as I've normally done over the last few years. This year, possibly, I'll only put 4 to a pot. I do use the gel as opposed to the powder because I find I have a much better success rate with the gel. Do stress, don't let the leaves touch one another. Label. And a good dousing. You realise how much joy there is in fuchsias. It really is good fun, and it keeps you out of the pub on Sunday dinner times as well, so you get brownie points.
Still to come, foxgloves, fig trees and flower arranging. Before all that, let's find out about one of the most ancient plants on the planet. This F is for ferns.
And we're joining Carol Klein on a trip to South Wales.
They evolved long before flowering plants, and they have an entirely different method of reproduction. They don't set any seeds. Instead of that, on the back of their fronds, they produce multiple spores, very, very fine spores, which are carried in the breeze hither and thither. Despite the fact that some are evergreen and some herbaceous, they all share one common feature, and that is, each year on this marvellous cycle, they renew themselves by producing these brand new crosiers. First of all, they're tightly furled, almost like fists, and then gradually they lengthen and extend until they become completely new fronds. You might say that they're all green, but those greens are so subtle and so various, and the forms of the fronds are so diverse. You really don't need anything else. You could make a garden out of ferns. And over 100 years ago, that's just what people did, in a big way. Fern fever had gripped the country, and elaborate glass ferneries were built at grand Victorian residences. The one at Dewstow House in Monmouthshire fell into disrepair after the Second World War and was buried under rubble for nearly 60 years, before its current owners decided to excavate and restore this lost fern wonderland. Keeping a watchful eye on this treasure trove is head gardener Peter Lane. It's magical. It's fairyland, isn't it?
Beautiful, isn't it?
It really is. And it is a grotto, isn't it? You just feel as though you're in this secret place and you've just discovered it.
Basically, we knew that there was something here.
Yeah.
So we started digging, found a pond, found a path,
yeah,
kept going. And one of the grottos was this, the Tufa Grotto.
So is this what it would have looked like originally?
Well, up to the roof level you see now, it is original, but with a few modifications to allow for new planting.
But it wouldn't have had a corrugated iron roof, would it?
No, there certainly wasn't. There were beams covering this grotto with stalactites, all man-made, and a rather grand Victorian domed glass roof over the top. It must have been really, really impressive in its day.
The vast labyrinth of underground grottos here at Dewstow was started in 1895 and took over 15 years to carve out, creating the perfect environment for moisture-loving ferns. There are some ferns that are unforgettable, that stay with you. Ethereum nipponicum pictum has an almost haunting presence. Pictum means painted, and this is the Japanese painted fern. And just one plant of this makes a complete cameo all on its own. It's a beautiful fern. These damp caverns perfectly recreate the moist woodland that ferns like this woodwardia thrive in. And Peter has his own tried and tested method of propagating it.
You can see the bulbil forming at the bottom there, and you can cut that off.
What, just sever it across the stem?
Yeah, sever it and then pot it up, and you would be okay, I would have thought, but this is my favourite way of doing it.
And very complex equipment. Plastic bag with a load of compost in
Yes,
it.
and the piece of string.
Oh, don't forget the piece
Don't
of
forget the string. Most important.
Shove it in there then. And you just want it to be in contact with that compost,
That's
yeah?
it, yeah.
Will you do the string bit?
There we go.
Were you ever a Boy Scout?
Oh, I only know one knot. It was my granny's.
So how long will you leave that in there?
I'll leave that in there for a minimum of 6 weeks. Hopefully you'll see one of the fronds, the new fronds, start to unfurl, and you'll know then that it's ready to cut off and pot up for next year.
OK. I suppose it's easy to assume that, you know, all ferns are pretty similar. But when you start looking at them, you realise just how vastly diverse they are. And very often you think of ferns as being these great, big, bold plants with large fronds, much divided. But in contrast, some of them can be delicate and feminine. Look at the filigree of this beautiful little maidenhair fern. I think the point is that you don't need a grotto. You can grow ferns just about anywhere because they're so accommodating. Even that grotty corner between the dustbin and the garage is a perfect place to decorate with ferns. And what wonderful ornamental plants they are.
Thanks, Carol. Now, get your wellies ready. We're moving on to F for foraging. Here, Matt Baker meets a professional forager who's got the lowdown on what you can and can't eat in the wild.
Forests like this one in Pembrokeshire have been used by people to gather up wild foods for thousands and thousands of years. And today, I'm here to meet a man who is continuing this tradition by foraging for the best that Mother Nature has to offer. Yun, how are you doing down there? You're
doing very good, mate. Good
nice
to meet you.
You've got two little helpers here as well. Who have we got? Who are these two?
That's little Bo, the son of George, and George is around somewhere.
So you are what's known as a professional forager. When did you start then?
About 13 years ago, and it began just with some friends who are running a wild mushroom business, and then I realised through what they were doing that nobody had specialised in wild vegetables, and that's kind of what I've worked on.
So I'm guessing, Yun, that there's quite a bit around even where we're standing here.
Absolutely. In fact, I was just in the middle of collecting some of this cleavers, and you stand still.
Yes.
And it didn't work. But what it does, it's the one that...
Sticky Jack.
Sticky Jack.
That's quite...
It's minimal at this stage. You're just
It is, yeah. I mean, it's a starter.
Just over there, that white flower's meadowsweet. Now, let's have a smell of that.
Oh, wow.
Now, that's a substitute for honey.
Yes, it is. That is incredible.
And if you taste it, it'll remind you of a sort of antiseptic cream.
Oh, yeah. Is this a full-time job for you now, then?
13 years, 52 weeks a year, rain, snow, wind, storm, hurricane, I've been out in it.
And who are you foraging for these days?
From some Gordon Ramsay chefs like Stuart Gillis, Dorchester, Claridge's. It's really anywhere I get time to give a call to and say, do you fancy using this stuff? And also I rely on them and their skills to come up with ideas and what to do with it, because these are ingredients that just haven't been used, aren't necessary even in a recipe book. So they really have to come up with some clever stuff.
Just yards away, we came across another wild vegetable.
You got some there?
Just here.
The hairy bittercress.
So how much would that be worth then? Or how much would half a kilo of that be worth if you're going to send it to a chef?
Well, it isn't worth what you have to go through to get it, put it that way. I mean, you know, you could pay £20 or something like that, but it's, like I say, for me, it's not about the money.
So it's just basically getting into places like this that you love so much.
I'll help you.
Thank you. Pull you out. Oh, stop. Lovely stuff.
Okay, we're off. Let's go find some wood sorrel.
So what area does wood sorrel thrive in? Yeah.
Well, it likes the shade and cool of the forest, so we've found ourselves in a shady spot here. Again, it likes a bit of water, but in the summertime that gets scarce, so you're not going to find very large amounts of it. Excuse the attention, just looking around, because there we have it, buried down here. Now, for me, this is the king or queen or whatever you want to call this is the #1. It contains oxalic acid, which means you don't want to eat too much of this.
Okay.
So it is actually officially a poisonous plant. But if eaten in small quantity, no problem at all. The French make soup out of it, and well, I gave it to the Queen for her birthday dinner, so she ate it.
In a small dose.
In a small dose, so she ate it. I'm sure we can.
Yeah. It tastes really earthy, and it kind of tastes like a woodland. Now, obviously, it's quite a dangerous thing to do, to wander around and just pick things off the floor and eat them. I mean, what is your process?
Well, firstly, don't touch anything if you don't know about it. In fact, there's a story I tell about foxglove, which is digitalis, and it's known for its heart. It's a heart drug, but it's a poisonous plant. You only have to touch that plant, and your heart will speed up. And that story in its own right made me suddenly realise even touching a mushroom you didn't know what it was, or a plant you don't know what it is not a good thing.
When it comes to sourcing wild vegetables, Pembrokeshire's a fertile hunting ground, offering a wide variety of environments. And this is one of the county's estuaries.
So, here, sea beet, Beetus vulgaris. Basically, it grows just above the tide line. Very obvious, there's your tide line. This is the brought up by the last spring tide. Right. And just above the tide line, you find the sea beet. Basically, it's of the beet family, it's a spinach, it's a thick leaf. It's a vegetable you would cook. I mean, you can try a little piece of...
Oh, that, yeah. There's a lot to that, isn't there?
It is. It's a fleshy, thick leaf, so the chefs really love it for cooking.
And on that note, Yun's going to cook up a simple dish using this sea beet and a sea bass that I picked up from Fish Week.
little selection of our stuff. And a little bit of sea beet.
The fish is really lovely, but I tell you what, that sea beet in there as well.
Well, I'll get you a glass of elderflower champagne.
Elderflower champagne as well?
Perfect summer drink.
You'd if I'd known I'd have dressed up, man. Cheers. Here's the foraging.
Our foraging expert there mentioned a flower that can get your heart racing just through touch. And we're looking at that very flower now as we've reached F for foxglove.
Let's meet the Baker family from Devon, who oversee the conservation of this great British bloom.
One of the reasons I really love the foxgloves is because they are a natural plant. They're native to Britain. They're probably the most spectacular of our native flora. I think the way we garden reflects foxgloves themselves. They're a very natural flower, and essentially we garden in a natural way. We don't go in for this business of extending day length with electrical lights. We don't use lots of expensive heating. We've chosen a group of plants which respond well for the Chelsea week. Foxgloves give a very good return for that effort involved. You can sow this tiny little seed, and within 3 weeks it's germinating. And then you get this sort of cabbagey rosette developing, and that gives the energy to produce this huge flower spike just 9-10 months later. Foxgloves were granted national collection status over 25 years ago now. We're currently the only national collection of foxgloves. It's a huge honour, and of course it means that there's a huge amount of responsibility involved. Foxgloves, of course, are not just the prettiest of plants that one can grow in the garden, they're also some of the most useful. Foxgloves, particularly our native sort, Digitalis purpurea, is the plant that Dr. Withering of the mid-18th century used to extract digoxin, which is used even today as a heart regulant and is responsible for keeping an awful lot of people alive. Mary, my wife, and I, we set up the Botanic Nursery 20 years ago now, and that was primarily to produce some of the less usual garden plants. We were aware that everybody loved foxgloves, the traditional British sorts, and it occurred to us that the other sorts, the other 20 species, would also find a ready market if we could make those available to the gardening public. In the world of foxgloves, we've essentially got two different sorts. There's the biennial sorts, these are the ones that everyone's familiar with. Digitalis purpurea, this is the native to the hedgerows and forests and woods of Britain and Northern Europe. Purple by name, but not always purple in colour, because you can get this one in whites and in apricots and even a rather good primrose yellow. So lots of diversity there. Don't be put off by the fact that they're biennial. This flower spike will produce thousands of seed. So once you've got foxgloves in your garden, you're always going to have foxgloves. But we've also got the perennial sorts. There's Digitalis haywoodii from Portugal with its silver leaf. You've also got Digitalis obscura. These were rescued from a golf course in Malaga. It only grows 15 to 18 inches high from a permanent woody rootstock. A lovely little thing to have. So these are the sorts of foxgloves that we really want to bring to the public's attention. Our job as a grower really is to make these unusual plants available for everyone. Having grown the native sorts, let's try some of the unusual ones as well.
And if you want advice on how to plant foxgloves yourself, here's Monty Don.
I'm putting these foxgloves here in the wall garden. This is north-facing, so it's fairly shady, although it actually gets light in the afternoon and early morning. And foxgloves are woodland plants. Now, this is a variety called Sutton's apricot. I'm always looking for apricot flowers because it's a tricky colour, because that balance between orange and pink, when it's dead right, is lovely, but very often gets a bit muddy. However, these should be good, and they exactly fit in with the palette of the wall garden, which is all pastels and soft colours. And planting them can be easy. I'll plant a little group here. Just make a hole. There's a bit of allium coming up there. Now you can see that's got a good root system. It's been grown in a compost with plenty of leaf mould added, which replicates the whole woodland environment that they're happiest in. And just pop that in, like that. Put one back here. Now these should flower next May and June, and all winter they'll just sit there. And the whole point about biennials is that you sow the seed immediately after flowering, which in this case is sort of May, June time. They develop foliage and good root system, and then wait and bide their time over winter.
And the soil is now still warm, so in autumn the roots are still growing. So next spring, when the light starts to increase and the soil warms up, they can grow vigorously from a head start. And these should be nice and tall, about 3-4 foot tall, lots of flowers and lots of seed, and then the process will start again.
Thanks, Monty. Now, if you're looking to create a beautiful garden, you'll also want what surrounds it to be equally good looking, which is why our next F is for fences. Take it away, Joe Swift.
So I'm building a really simple structure here, but it's going to be in keeping with the garden as a whole. And it's going to have a post at each end, really simple. I'm going to fix it into this wall, actually, rather than going to the ground, because the foundations of the wall here makes it hard to dig. There's going to be 2 rails running across it, and then I've got some really nice cedar, plain cedar, which is a good timber for outdoor use, which is going to give a really nice finish along the front. And in fact, the rest of the fence around the whole garden and the bike store is going to be faced with the same timber to give it a really designer, cohesive look. So the first thing I've got to do is dig a hole. Now, I am an absolute stickler for levels, and on a fence like this, if you don't get it perfectly level, it's going to start showing, OK? Mark that off with your pencil, and then cut that nice and square. The next thing to do is concrete that post into the ground. Now, there's some really good products on the market. They're designed specifically to concrete posts into the ground, but you mix them in dry and they go off really quickly, which means they set really quickly, so you can get going on the fence. You don't have to wait overnight or anything. What you do is fill about 1/3 of the hole with water, make sure the post's nice and upright, and then pour in the concrete around the post. And with the offcut, just do a little bit of tamping. And just before it all sets together, you get your spirit level and you just check that it's plumb. There you go. That is perfect. On the other side, I'm fixing a post to the wall so I don't have to break through the foundation of the wall itself. I'm marking up this piece of 4x2 timber so that I'm making sure the screws go into bricks rather than into the mortar. I'm pre-drilling some holes using a wooden bit. I'm then changing my bit over to a masonry bit and marking where those holes hit the wall. I'm then drilling decent-sized holes into the wall, which can take a raw plug and a screw. And I'm then screwing the piece of timber into the wall and checking that it's nice and plumb. Great, that's nice and solid. Once the 2 posts are in, it's a case of measuring the gap between them and cutting the 4x2 timber to size. I'm using these special fixings to attach firstly to the cross beams and then those cross beams to the post, so they're nice and solid. OK, and there we go. We've got a simple framework for the fence to go on. Now, once you've got that framework of the posts and the rails going across, you can basically fix anything to that you want. So depending on your budget or what look you want, you know, you can go for some old boards, you go tantalised boards, wide boards, thin boards, you can go for metal sheeting, you can buy those bamboo rolls and just clad that across the whole front. But I'm going for something special. I'm going for this lovely cedar. Now, it's important to get the spacing really accurate, OK? Make sure you get the same spacing all the way along. And I'm just going to use one of the screws to actually space it. Now, to get that really professional look, there's a couple of tips here, OK? I've just clad the post at the end with a couple of pieces of cedar so you don't see the softwood. And also, just to run a top rail along the top, makes it look really nice and solid and chunky and well finished. Well, I think it looks the absolute business, one designer fence, and that cedar smells so beautiful too. It will go silver over time, but if you want to keep the colour, then just use an external wood oil on it every year or so to bring the richness of the colour back again.
But if you do want to paint your fence, what colours should you go for? Ready with some answers and his paintbrush is Alan Titchmarsh.
The colour I'm using here is called Old English Green. It's a soft,
dusky green. And the reason I'm using it is because I want to widen the garden. And you can see the effect it has, this soft colour. It's already taking that fence out and into the shrubs and the trees beyond. It's pushing out the narrow boundaries of the garden. Now, if I were to paint that fence yellow, it would come straight in at me. It would be very bright, but it would make the garden appear smaller, really in your face. If I were to paint it bright blue, and I don't paint every fence I know bright blue, it would become much more foreground, much more important. Here, it's beginning to disappear. And if you want a fence that goes into the shadows, look at the watercolour painting. What colour are the shadows there? Soft, dusky lavender blue. Here, this soft, dusky Old English green is the perfect background for my bright annual flowers.
Thanks, Alan. Now, our next topic is a tree that you might normally associate with warmer countries, like Turkey and Greece, but it's actually perfectly happy growing here in the UK too. This F is for fig trees.
And here's Toby Buckland on how to treat them when winter approaches.
The cold, well, it's caused the leaves on my fig tree to tumble to the ground, but that's nothing to worry about because I think it'll still fruit next year. All the signs are there, lots of embryonic fruits that I'm picking off. Now, figs produce different flushes of fruits throughout the summer. It's always tempting to see these ones and think, well, they're going to ripen over the winter and give me an early crop. But the fact is they won't. All they'll do is take the energy from the little figs that are close to the branches, these little pea-sized ones, and stop them fruiting as prolifically and as well. So, by picking them off now, you improve the health of your plant and the health of next year's harvest.
Next, we're joining James Wong, who's also giving tips on how to grow figs and showing how they can be used for medicinal purposes.
My favourite bit about the fig is its smell. Having one in your garden on a hot summer's day, it emits this rich, sweet fragrance that really reminds you of a Spanish holiday. It was believed they were used by the gladiators as a favourite training food and also the original Olympic athletes. In the UK, growing figs is really relatively easy. They're hardy down to -15, and they'll produce fruit that are pretty much the quality of the stuff you find in really posh supermarkets.
Figs do best in a sunny, sheltered position and benefit from pruning in spring and summer. If you plant a tree in a pot, it will restrict its roots, and you'll get even more fruit in late summer. Figs have a high soluble fibre content and mild laxative properties. I'm combining them with senna, which contains even stronger laxative compounds. Figs work by drawing water into the intestine, which helps soften food in the gut. And together with the senna, they produce a reliable but gentle laxative effect.
I'm going to be making a real medicine cabinet standby, syrup of figs. Everyone's heard of it. And the really cool thing about it is the stuff that you pick up in your chemist has pretty much identical ingredients to something you can cook up on your stove at home. It's sugar, figs, senna, and a couple of flavouring agents added in. So why not give it a go? And the best thing is, while you're making it, you get to eat figs.
Slice 8 fresh figs into quarters.
Figs are actually an inverted flower. All these little seeds here, which are now fruit, were actually flowers at one point, and the scar you get on the bottom of a fig is actually a little hole that a wasp enters when it's at its early stages, and it sort of flies around inside or crawls around inside, pollinating those flowers, and then pops back out again. So it's a flower sort of wrapped around and inside itself. I've got 8 fresh figs quartered up here, and I'm going to team them up with another fruit just to give them a bit of a tag team action of effect. It's a fruit called senna.
You can buy senna in health food shops. I'm using 4 handfuls because I'm making a large quantity, but you need about 6 pods per 10 millilitre dose. Soak them in 100 millilitres of boiling water and leave to infuse.
After about half an hour, when the mixture's cooled, you've got this glorious golden tea colour. And all you've got to do then is basically pop everything in a blender.
Strain the senna infusion onto the figs and blend until smooth. Pop it on the heat and add 100 grams of sugar. Cook for about 25 minutes. Keep stirring to be sure it doesn't stick and burn.
You're aiming for it to look a little bit like cough syrup, thick and gloopy and have this really wonderful glossy shine to it. We're getting near there. The only thing is with syrup of figs, it never really looks particularly fantastic. It actually looks a bit like its desired outcome. If you stick a little bit of lemon juice in at the end, it can brighten up the colour. So I'm going to see if that works.
Take off the heat and add your lemon juice. Stir and watch as the citric acid changes its colour. It's starting to get a sort of a reddish brown, fantastic, almost like a strawberry jam colour. And the great bit is, when you hold it up to the light, you can see it's almost sort of gelatinous. And what that sort of gloopy stuff is the soluble fibre. And that's what helps keep you regular. It looks good, but what does it taste like? It tastes really good. If I do say so myself, much better than the stuff you pick up in the chemist. And it's just as easy to make as a smoothie, so there's really no reason why you shouldn't give it a go. It will keep in a bottle in the fridge for 3 to 4 weeks. Take 2 teaspoons just before bed, but don't exceed the dose. And you shouldn't take remedies containing senna if you're pregnant.
Thanks, James. Now, back to flowers. Not a specific type this time. No, we're looking at how to make the best of the blooms that you've cut. Our last F is for flower arranging. Here's 12-year-old Beth Smallwood showing how it's done.
I really love doing flower arranging because there's so many different colours. All the colours of the rainbow. Reds, yellows, greens, purples, pinks. It's just really great to just use flowers as art and do it in 3D. I am 12 years old. I started flower arranging a couple of years ago when we had a flower show at our church, and I saw one that really inspired me to start. I come about twice a month to do flower arranging with the other ladies here. It's really fun being the youngest because the older ladies help me with what I can do better. We both teach each other, really. I teach them some new ideas and they teach me some ideas as well. We get the flowers from local suppliers, but we mainly get our foliage here from our nature reserve near the church. I find foliage is really important to give structure and shape to the flower arrangement. Tree ivy is really good because it wraps around the pots or around the flowers, which can look really effective and really quite pretty. My advice for anybody who's starting flower arranging or thinking of starting would be get a really good pair of gloves, get a really good pair of scissors as well. And finally, I'll choose a really good vase. What I really love about the lilies is their petals and the way they curl at the end. I also love the closed flowers because they look really nice in the arrangement. I just think they make you feel really happy when you see them. There are no rules in flower arranging. There's no right and wrong. It's just your imagination, what you think looks right, because it is possible to do anything with flowers. What I really love about roses is the way they become in different colours, and I also love the way the petals are bunched together. That makes them perfect for flower arranging.
How are you getting on, Beth? Oh, you finished. Well done. Oh, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
I really enjoy just using my imagination and my creativity side, but also looking at it and just thinking I've done that. And other people commenting on it and just saying it looks really nice. It just gives you a really good feeling.
Beautiful, and something anyone and everyone can try, as Beth demonstrated so well there. And that's all from us today. Do join us next time for some more top tips on our A to Z of TV gardening. Goodbye.